To understand why the European Union is on the verge of collapse, let's ask ourselves this question: is milk good or bad? At the moment you ask yourself this question and start thinking about it, you immediately want to clarify. In what situation? For example, for a nursing baby, it's clearly good. For making cottage cheese and adding it to coffee is also good. And for those who are allergic to lactose, yes, it's bad. Well, pouring milk into orange juice or tomato juice is probably not good. It feels like it's not very good, that it's bad, yes. So most of these kinds of clarifications require specifying for whom, when, how, as well as customs duties. If you like French perfumes, for example, and there's a 120% duty on them, yes, then from your point of view, that's very bad. Unless, of course, you're Bill Gates, who, when he buys a whole wagon, and immediately for all the Russian girls who appear in his life. Since we already have results regarding steel tariffs, let's try to figure out this actually quite complicated issue. I'll later bring it all together, so to speak, meaning I'll connect everything I've said before with what I'm talking about now. So this is actually a complicated issue. Because it's good, steel is bad. Using steel as an example. What is steel? I understand that you probably already know what steel is. These are ship hulls, submarines, bridge structures, towers, nails, all sorts of gears, pipelines, parts of jet engines, and components of cryogenic equipment. So basically everywhere, wherever you look, there's a lot of steel. In March 2018, the Trump administration, keep in mind the 45th, introduced tariffs, taxes on imported steel at 25%. Voyubela, about 81.6 million tons of steel are produced for all steel and aluminum imports into the United States, and in 2017, about 107 million tons of steel were needed. So, well, the difference was, generally speaking, obviously 15-16 million tons of steel that were lacking. In China, steel was supplied below cost. This is called dumping, and American factories started to shut down, simply for the reason that, well, it was much more convenient and cheaper to buy steel from the Chinese. The foundry industry was dying out, and by the way, the same thing happened here and in Europe too. The country couldn't end up in a situation where China, which is competing with us, right now, it's still competing. Well, let's say economic, political, and then who knows what it might turn into. Yes, maybe we'll have a completely different conflict with them if they cut off our supply of steel shipments. I'm just talking about steel right now, nothing else. Then that would be a problem for us. Well, to put it mildly, it's not very good, not very pleasant. So that steel consumers find it unprofitable to buy from China or more profitable to buy from their own suppliers. Trump imposed a 25% tariff and later increased it to 50%. Except for the UK, Britain kept it at 25% as far as I remember, and right away he imposed 25%. Then after some time it became 50%, and buying steel produced in the United States became much more profitable than importing it, even though the Chinese started lowering their prices. Nevertheless, very slowly, production capacities inside the United States started to develop and turn around, and purchases of imported steel began to decrease. Imported steel noticeably declined. This doesn't happen all at once. There are many contracts, multi-stage agreements for many years, and similar connections. The United States stopped depending on supplies from China, Turkey, Japan, and the United Kingdom. These four countries mainly supplied us with steel. This is a huge victory from the standpoint of national security. Now there is a downside. Well, it's almost never the case that there isn't one. Export of steel products made in the United States of America. So they brought in the steel, paid more for it, not even imported but their own. It originally cost more than Chinese steel used to, and the Chinese keep selling theirs for less. Somewhere we make a product that uses steel and its cost is already higher from the start. We send it somewhere and they tell us, we get it cheaper from over there, so we'll buy from them instead. So by doing this, we've reduced employment. Well, first of all, we've reduced exports, and secondly, we've reduced employment in export industries, even though we've increased employment in steel foundry production. You could say that, economically, we've lost in some areas and gained in others, and overall, we can't claim that there was a huge economic benefit. So, why did we actually do this in the first place? Yes, national security, ladies and gentlemen. The main reason is national security, and it has clearly been strengthened. If before that. So, a trade or real war with China, plus difficulties with maritime shipping, would have led to problems in the United States. Now, considering that only 14% of steel comes from abroad, mostly from the United Kingdom, by the way, we have nothing to fear regarding steel supply problems. But there's another interesting aspect. Tariffs accumulate money in the state's accounts, and it's serious money that can be used. Well, it's a double-edged sword, yes. First of all, the United States national debt can be paid off, which either has never been done or at the very least hasn't been done in a very long time. It hasn't decreased, yes, and secondly, it can be replaced. So, with the help of this money, these funds that were collected, taxes, that is, well, the Marxist system of income taxes, let's put it that way. In simple terms, in plain words, not to rob the population, or at least to rob them a month less, let's say, and to stop punishing those who work better by taking away huge amounts of money, huge percentages from them, and provided the most benefit to the country, meaning its people. What does benefit to the country mean? It's benefit to us, to you and me, right? The mountains, seas, oceans, etc., they didn't benefit Amashta, but they benefited us. Today, you produced good and affordable products, and everyone buys from you. You received gratitude from the people. Well, you made a lot of money there, and monetary units in dollars, maybe even in cryptocurrency. Without delay, the government comes and takes away most of your earnings, up to 70%. For what purpose, among other things, to give it to those who produced less or low quality and expensive products and didn't earn anything? These earnings from customs will help, if not stop, then at least significantly reduce this banditry. This money will reduce the robbery and the prosecution of the most successful members of our society. Customs duties on imported goods protect local producers. What does this mean? Imports become more expensive, some consumers switch to local products, and this will increase the cost of goods. Yes, it will increase. Even if just a little, it will still increase, no matter how little. But it will support employment in the protected industries in the country, especially. You could say I just swapped one thing for another. Yes, but there's another factor. If you allow duty-free imported goods into your country, but your counterpart doesn't allow yours in at all or imposes high duties on your goods, then he protected his own people and put ours, our producers and workers, at a disadvantage. He gets more and more income, employment, financial stability, and independence, while you have less and less employment and everything else, accordingly. Customs duties can only be lifted when they are lifted by all parties involved in trade. Let me give you an example. So, for example, the same steel was brought to us duty-free and sold below cost. China, Turkey, and a number of other countries. This is done routinely, meaning the government subsidizes it in order to break into foreign markets. And our production shut down, meaning those who can't compete with dumping can't compete with dumping. Our production costs 100, theirs also costs 100. Maybe, yes, but the government gave them 20, so it cost them 80. They can sell for 98. But we can't sell for 98 because then we lose 2 of something on each one since our cost price is 100. And I really hope I explained it clearly. Our production shut down because of this, since we can't compete with this kind of dumping. Next, we make steel screws from cheap steel and can sell them cheaper than others. So how do we balance this? All right, damn. Okay, we imported steel, paid less there. Our own workers shrank, fine, but now we'll increase exports of cheap steel products. hire the same workers who were laid off from the steel plants, so everything should be fine. They bit us, so we'll bite them back and forth. There's a small problem. They don't let our goods into their market. So we've said A, and now we're sitting here, and what are we supposed to do with these slightly cheaper goods? I understand selling them in our own market, but we need to balance this. If we take something from that country, we need to send something back, preferably more. So the screws didn't get screwed in or didn't get unscrewed, or how should I put it? We couldn't offset our losses in steelmaking with profits from screws. We ended up with a loss. We lost people there and lost the market, and we can't export them. We're not allowed to bring them in there. They impose high tariffs on screws to protect their own producers. Screw manufacturers, the one who wanted to be the most honest, open, and free loses out. You can't be the only honest one. In a gang of thieves and cheaters, you will definitely lose. You just have no chance. You don't have to become a cheater yourself. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's not like, oh, they're cheaters, so I'll be a cheater too. Now we're all going to cheat. No, you just need to make sure that others, at least with you, don't cheat you. What they do with someone else is their business, but with you, they shouldn't deceive you. Now, regarding tariff barriers, the United States is obligated to protect all strategic sectors, to protect pharmaceutical manufacturers, the production of everything necessary for armaments, and the food industry. How can we just import the food industry from abroad and ruin all our own producers? Yes, and then some country like China, Russia, or someone else either just refuses to supply us, or they send submarines and blow up all the convoys. It's the same thing Stalin did to Ukraine and Kazakhstan, starving people to death. Today we must produce our own semiconductors, our own chips, our own electronic components, critical minerals, and have lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements. There are actually 16 sectors that must be protected and able to meet the country's demand, and that's 100%. Well, maybe 80% and another 20%. Those are brought to us by friendly countries, but if something happens to them, we must be able to handle it ourselves. And we can increase production to 100%. The main, if not the only, task, role, and duty of the state is to protect the population, and preserving these industries is part of what it means to protect the population. This is what happens when you tell thieves, guys, you used to steal, live well, have a great time, but it's over now. The good times are finished. Now we're all going to start playing by the rules. At first they laugh, of course, but then realizing that it's serious, they start to hate you, and they hate you with a fierce hatred. What happens when the United States says, if you impose tariffs on us, we will impose tariffs on you? What happens when the United States says, you protect the industries that are important to you, and we will protect the industries that are important to us? What happens if freeloaders are told no more freebies, it's over, now everything will be balanced, equal, open, and fair? They are terrified. Honestly, for them it's like death. It's ruin. We don't know how to do that. We haven't learned that. We weren't asked to do that, right? Come on, they weren't asked, but we'll manage. And besides, we protected them for free. We're not even asking them to pay for our expenses from the past 50 years. But from now on, the business of saving a drowning man is in the hands of the drowning man himself. Do you think they're grateful that we let their industries develop? That you allowed anything to be imported here duty-free while you agreed to their tariffs on us? And we didn't import those goods? Do you think they're grateful that we protected them with our children, with our weapons, which cost a lot of money? Grateful? At the very least, they hate us. Ah, those terrible, nightmarish Americans with their laws, so awful and nightmarish. How dare they? Okay, they're blinded and deafened by hatred. I'm afraid they'll go even further. What next? The word that comes next, the one that sounds like Kushali, So we are their worst enemies, because they've already gotten used to us giving and not wanting anything in return. They've gotten used to the idea that this is how it is now and how it will be, and it belongs to them. Well, since we give and don't want anything for it, it means it's theirs. And now suddenly what they've decided belongs to them. We're taking it away, taking it away. It's theirs, and we're taking it. Now there's no one worse than us. We've stolen what they considered theirs. We're thieves. Well, deep down they understand who the thieves are, right? Yes, but nobody wants to hate themselves. Well, there are people who hate themselves, yes, but as a rule, no, it's never my fault, it's always someone else. And the main one to blame turned out to be the redhead. And it's impossible to endure this. Why did you give so little weapons to Ukraine, so little weapons to Ukraine? Was I supposed to give them? Well, okay, let's not talk about Ukraine. I'm afraid making Europe great again won't work. What might happen is that we could go back, guys, to the Middle Ages, to religious wars, to ordinary fascism, but with an Islamist flavor. What might also happen is a mass exodus of white people to wherever they'll be allowed in, maybe Australia, Canada, maybe even somewhere in Africa, the same places millions moved from to Europe, and now white people might rush there, so that later they could be slaughtered and have what they built taken away from them, just so there would be enough to eat for another 10 or 15 years. What might also happen is the split and collapse of their stillborn, idiotic, meaningless European Union with fascists at the helm. Well, all right, let's call them communo-fascists. Let's not say they're just fascists, but communo-fascists. All right, let's stop with this prediction for now and see what happens. And let's hope that I'm completely wrong about everything. 100% wrong, but I'm afraid that I'm right. Goodbye.